If you haven't had a chance to see Avengers Endgame yet, well, what are you waiting for? Go watch it right now because this video is going to contain some serious spoilers. We spent so much of the lead up to Endgame trying to predict what was going to happen that frankly we need a break. Spider-Man Far From Home promises far less moving parts, so let's take a look at some things we definitely don't think are going to happen in this movie. Into the multiverse. For a long time, it seemed like Marvel Studios refused to follow through with getting rid of any of their characters for good. It's easy to see why, since they bring in tons of cash and their fans are a little emotionally invested in them, to put it mildly. But then in Avengers Infinity War, they made up for it by wiping out half of them in one fell swoop. Don't worry, they get better in Avengers Endgame. We've already seen Peter Parker fade to dust once, and it was absolutely devastating. So we can say with almost certainty that Spider-Man is going to live on, regardless of what happens in Far From Home. It took Marvel Studios about a decade to take a hero permanently out of the running, so we lost 2 original Avengers, and we already watched Peter die once already. However, that doesn't mean he's going to survive on in the MCU. The deal between Marvel Studios and Sony for the rights to his character is up, and Sony has their own universe they're trying to put together. Again. Although Tom Holland has stated there's going to be a 3rd standalone Spider-Man movie, he didn't say it was going to take place in the MCU. One true pairing. Although he started out as an awkward high school student, Peter Parker has never had much trouble finding women who are interested in him. In fact, that might be the most unrealistic thing about the whole franchise. Way crazier than the radioactive spider thing, but although he's been in love before, fans know how close the relationship between Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson is. In the comic books, these two bonded over the loss of Gwen Stacy and formed an unbreakable bond with one another as a result. Although he spent Spider-Man Homecoming fawning over Liz, we had a feeling MJ was his true calling. Then the Far From Home trailer really hit us over the head with the fact that Peter and MJ are going to be a thing. MJ, Mary Jane, we know, it's really subtle. Right now, it seems like there is approximately a 0% chance Peter and MJ don't confess their poorly hidden feelings for one another at some point during this movie. We aren't saying they're going to share a rain-soaked upside-down kiss or anything like that, but we're not ruling it out either. Maybe they won't be together forever, but they're definitely going to be together for the duration of Far From Home. Peter and MJ not happening just seems outside of the realm of possibilities. Avengers Assemble! In Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter's BFF Ned discovered the truth about his internship at Stark Industries. He begged Peter to let him be his guy in the chair and help him out with his superhero antics. And we've seen Ned do a pretty admirable job of it so far. Well, aside from almost inadvertently blowing up the Washington Monument. Hey, nobody's perfect. While we're sure Ned is still going to do his best to help Peter in Far From Home, we definitely don't think he's going to become a superhero. In the comic books, the character Ned leads works for the Daily Bugle and acts as a villain after being brainwashed. But the MCU version of Ned is actually quite similar to another character, Gonke Lee. Instead of being besties with Peter Parker, Gonke is pals with Miles Morales. Ned and Gonke look similar. They both have Legos and they're both superhero fans. Gonke even goes undercover at one point and uses the name Ned as his alias. Ned may have a comic book twin, but that twin is also not a superhero. We don't think Ned is going to be joining what's left of the Avengers anytime soon. Uncle Ben. There were a lot of things Spider-Man Homecoming got right, and one of them was glossing over Peter's origin story. It's not that we don't enjoy it, it's just that we all know it by heart by now. This movie got right into the action without focusing on the fateful spider bite, the loss of Uncle Ben, and like pretty much every other piece of Spider-Man lore, it also glossed over what happened to Peter's parents. They're gone, and that's all anyone needs to know. People rarely stay gone for too long in the comic books, but Uncle Ben has always been the exception to this rule. He's as far gone as you can be, and even when he pops up in an alternate timeline, well, let's just say that he isn't long for this world. Although it would certainly be unexpected, we have to say that we don't think Uncle Ben is going to be suddenly alive in Spider-Man Far From Home. Although we never met the MCU version, we all know how great Uncle Ben was. And that he's definitely gone for good. And we're going to say the same about Peter's parents as well. Yeah, sorry Peter, at least you still got your Aunt May. Running jokes. While we all know about Spider-Man's origin story, it's always been kind of odd how old Aunt May and Uncle Ben are frequently depicted as. After all, they're not his great aunt and uncle or anything, so why are they so much older than Peter? Spider-Man Homecoming introduced us to an Aunt May who actually looks as though she could be Peter Parker's aunt and not his grandmother. It's kinda crazy we had to wait so long to finally see such a thing on the big screen. We're sure we don't have to tell you that Marissa Tomei is an attractive woman, and even if you didn't notice, you probably had it drilled into your head every single time she shows up on screen or someone mentions her. Seriously, does every single character have to make a comment about Peter's aunt? I thought Marvel Studios was trying to show that women can be more than just eye candy. Did we all learn nothing from Captain Marvel? Well, sadly, we don't expect the quips about Aunt May to stop at any point in Far From Home either. Asking people to stop commenting on her appearance is like asking Peter Parker to stop making pop culture references. We don't see that happening either. Mysterio. In the latest trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home, it looked like Quentin Beck was being positively heroic. This is a character comic book fans have been eager to see in the MCU for quite some time, but this wasn't quite what we expected. Why? Well, probably because Mysterio is one of Spider-Man's most determined villains. Yeah, this is a plot twist we can see a mile away. There's no way Quentin Beck is really just going to save the day and become a superhero. He's definitely up to something, and just because we don't know exactly what it is yet doesn't mean he's trustworthy. He might be able to fool Nick Fury, but we're convinced he isn't really who he says he is. In the comic books, Quentin wants to take out Spider-Man, and the longer Peter Parker refuses to go down, the more incensed Mysterio becomes. These two are mortal enemies, and Mysterio goes to some great lengths to combat Spider-Man's specific superpowers. He's even a founding member of the Sinister Six, a group dedicated to taking down Spider-Man. We definitely don't exactly see him pretending to play nice with Peter Parker for too long in Far From Home. Captain Marvel. In the movie Captain Marvel, we got to see Carol Danvers and Nick Fury form a genuine friendship in between all of the times they were fighting aliens or running for their lives. So beautiful. At the end of the movie, Carol gave Fury a pager and instructed him to only call her if it was a true emergency. We learned that Nick Fury has a pretty strict definition of what a true emergency really is, since he didn't page her until the decimation was happening. In fact, many fans wondered why things like the Chitauri invasion didn't inspire him to put in a call to his powerful friend. And it feels like Peter Parker speaks for the audience in the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer when he straight up asks Fury where mighty heroes like Thor and Captain Marvel are. Thor, well, as far as we know, Fury doesn't have a reliable way to get a hold of him. He just kind of shows up, and apparently Captain Marvel is occupied elsewhere. Really, after Carol Danvers was barely there in Avengers Endgame, this wasn't much of a surprise. We think it's safe to say that there's no way she's going to make a surprise appearance to fight against some elemental monsters in Far From Home. Training wheels. In Spider-Man Homecoming, we saw Peter Parker struggling to learn the finer points of his new superhero suit, courtesy of Tony Stark. He seemed to be getting a hang of things until Ned helped him take the training wheels off, and we do mean that quite literally, since Tony had put a program on the suit called the Training Wheels Protocol. It's like a parental control for your superhero suit, and naturally Peter wanted it to be gone so he could access all of the sweet features. But he quickly learned to be careful what he wished for when the suit engaged its kill mode, and Peter frantically had to deactivate it. In Avengers Endgame, we saw him put this mode on purposefully while fighting against an overwhelming amount of Chitauri. Little Spider-Man's all grown up. It's clear his proficiency with his suit has improved greatly, and we definitely don't think he's going to be putting the training wheels back on. Sure, it looked like he had to put on an old basic suit at one point after leaving his nice one at home, but we also spotted him wearing a black stealth suit among others. It's more likely we'll get to see some cool new Spider-Man costumes with lots of handy features. Nick Fury. The late Heimdall had the gift of omniscience, which meant he pretty much knew what was going on everywhere at all times. We're not saying Nick Fury is quite at that level yet, but he's pretty good at knowing what's going on. We've seen this demonstrated time and time again over the course of his career in the MCU, and even Happy Hogan knows you don't ghost Nick Fury. We saw him show up for Tony Stark's funeral in Avengers Endgame, and we know he makes an appearance in Far From Home. There's a period of time when he's trying to make contact with Peter Parker, who wants to ignore him so he can relax and go on a fun trip with all of his pals. So, what do you think the odds are that Fury is going to take no thank you for an answer and totally leave Peter alone? Come on, what kind of a movie would it be if that was to happen? Peter may want to hang out with MJ and take in the sights, but there's no way he's not going to have to answer Fury first. He spent years trying to get heroes organized, and apparently he's not willing to let Spider-Man simply go rogue after Tony passed away. Vacation. Poor Peter. All he wanted to do was enjoy his vacation, but we have to say that looks just about impossible. Obviously, he's not going to be able to dodge Fury forever, and there's no way Peter will fail to save the day when he has to. Unlike Tony Stark, who can send in his super suits to save the day remotely, Peter doesn't quite have that option. Protecting the innocent and fighting crime means putting yourself out there for Spider-Man, even if he does leave his good supersuit at home. Maybe Peter Parker will someday get a totally uneventful European vacation, but it's definitely not going to happen in Spider-Man Far From Home. After what went down in Avengers Endgame, it's not hard to blame Peter for wanting to get some rest and relaxation. Being dusted into non-existence for 5 years was probably really exhausting. Although Peter said he had no memory of it in Endgame, we have no doubt he's eager to get out there and live his life now that he has it back. But for Peter, living life means saving the day. Sorry, just comes the territory of being a superhero. Spider-Man Far From Home is going to be way more interesting and is going to have much higher production value than the average vacation vlog. The list of things that won't happen in Spider-Man Far From Home is limitless, and we're only giving you a few different options. We usually ask for your best predictions, but this time, give us your worst Far From Home theories. Then give that subscribe button a good little tickle for more from CBR. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.